Hey guys, we're here to show you the Hideout 179. This is a smaller travel trailer, but one of the great features about this one is you see down the side here is the slide. Now you don't get too many trailers of this size with a slide in it, and once you get inside you're going to see how much room that actually gives you. But starting at the front, we've got our typical A-frame hitching with our ball mount. Your ball off your tow vehicle goes under here. This is your locking, and then you have your pin there. That grabs the ball so that it won't come out when you're in transit. That has to be all the way down with the pin through it to make sure you're connected properly. You've got your safety chains and your power cable and your brake control. And one thing on the brake control is that this hooks the vehicle independently of the chains. And the purpose of it is if the tow vehicle ever disconnects from the trailer itself, this will get pulled out and it'll pull this little pin right here, which is your brake control. That'll come out and engage the brakes. For the brakes to engage, you need to have a charge on your battery to actually run those brakes. So it's not safe to travel without a battery on board and charged. So one thing to remember. Following coming back from the front there, we come onto the propane tank. You have a 20-pound propane tank on this unit, just like a barbecue. Open it, turn it one way and close the other way. You've got open and close directions on the handle here itself. Have it all the way on or all the way open and all the way closed, never in between. Your battery again is fully charged, ready to go, and connected to the unit. Coming down the front side here, all the RVs we sell, and every RV in the industry comes with what's called RV caulking on the corners and seals them all up. So this caulking runs across the ceiling, or the roof, sorry, down the sides, around the slide boxes right through here. And it's important that you check that caulking every 3 to 6 months. It can dry out over time and crack. And if that happens, you could let water or moisture into the unit, and you don't want that. So if you see a place in your inspection of the caulking, like even over here, for example, you want to make sure you peel that off, clean that area, and put a new bead of RV caulking down. If you do that every 3 to 6 months, and you'll prolong the life of your unit. If you don't, but somewhere down the line, you're going to have moisture problems in your unit. The other thing to do maintenance on is the roof. The roof is a rubber membrane. It's pliable when it's new. Over time, that roof membrane can dry out and crack, and potentially again leak moisture into the unit. So you've got to make sure that every 6 months you do a cleaning and a conditioning of the rubber membrane. So it's an easy two-step process. You apply the cleaner, scrub it off, and then rinse that off, and then apply the conditioner. If you do that, you'll keep the membrane pliable and soft, and it should last a long time. On this particular unit, because of the layout of the slide, on this side you're going to notice that this is covered up. Well, in behind here is some electrical components and plumbing components, and they're there to protect themselves, so they don't want you throwing things in and damaging them, because they just happen to be in this area. If you look through from the other side, you're going to see a panel on the other side, so they're completely sealed off. They're accessible if you need to by removing the panel, but they're there to protect and make sure that anything you put in there doesn't damage them. So that's why that's blocked off on this unit. Above that, you've got your freshwater connection, inner city water. So this one is your freshwater, so you have an onboard freshwater storage tank. You would take your hose with clean running water and put it into there and let it fill up. You don't connect your hose to this. All it does is it sits in there and fills it, and when it's full, you close the cap down. Now with freshwater, a couple of things to remember is that you should be putting in clean water. You should keep that tank clean as well, and don't let water sit in there for any prolonged period of time, because it can become stagnant and have health concerns with that. And if you want to run water from your freshwater tank, you need to run the water pump inside the unit. There's a switch on the wall. Otherwise, you don't have any pressure in the system. Now, moving right beside it is your city water connection. This here is where you actually take the water from the post or your house in some cases and plug it in and twist it on here. Now this is hand tightened. It's a plastic fitting, so you don't want to use pliers and stuff to try and tighten that down because you'll quickly break it and damage it, and then you'll have to replace it. But city water, once it's turned on, has pressure in itself and will pressurize the unit, so you don't need to run your water pump on city water. So on your fresh water, you use the water pump. On the city water, you don't use your water pump. Moving down the unit again, you have your slide box here. Again, just to refer to what I talked about before, make sure you have all this caulking checked on a regular basis. Make sure it's sealed up and good. Coming down the unit on this side here, you've got your electrical connection. So this is a 30 amp unit. It needs 30 amps to properly run the air conditioner on the roof. If you don't have 30 amps, you won't be able to run that air conditioner. So when you're booking your campsite, try and book 30 amp site. Otherwise, you won't be able to run that. It's the cable is hooked up inside, and you just slide that cable in and out there, and then when you're done, all the way in, you can close it, or all the way out, you can keep this to keep the rainwater on, and then it comes down and it hooks into wherever your campground site is. Underneath that is your first your outlet for your septic system. So you've got 2 tanks on board. You've got gray and black, and they're color coded with the gray handle and the black handle. If you want to dump your gray tank, you pull this, connect your sewer line to here and into the septic system, pull that, and then the gray will empty. Then if you want to do your black, it's the same thing. We do recommend that you do your black first, followed by your gray, and flush down the black with the gray. Even though the gray is dirty water, it's still cleaner than sewer. And we also recommend that even when you're hooked up with your onto your campground septic system with your hose and everything, that you keep those valves closed until the tanks are full, and then empty them. Don't leave those valves open, because the gases from the septic bed can leak into the unit and be hazardous to your health. So make sure that they're closed until you're ready to empty them. Next, along the side of the trailer is your hot water tank. To access it, you just turn your little tab and pull it out. So again, this is what the inside of a water tank looks like, or not the inside, but the back access panel. This is your anode rod. This is designed to rust and dissolve into the water instead of your tank doing that. So if without this, your tank would rust, but this is what keeps it clean and rust-proof inside. These will go, you're gonna probably need to replace this every year to 2 years, depending on how hard your water is. And when you pull it out, it'll just be one wire, or it can be look corroded, a lot different than that. So that will go in there and needs to be tightened down to make sure that it's not going to leak. This unit here runs on propane, so you have to have propane turned on and through your system. If there's air in the lines, this will try and ignite 3 times and then fail, and you're going to have to start purging air from the lines. I do recommend that when you get to your campsite and you're going to start turning on your water heater or potentially your furnace, that you go into your cooktop inside, run the cooktop until you get a gas coming out and it ignites, so you purge all the air, and then everything else should function pretty well after that. So that just has to be tightened in. Otherwise, we leave them out for the winterization to make sure there's no moisture in the tank. And then you just put this back on here, one way or another, and then put it back through your tab. And then you are secure. Okay, coming around the side here, we do have the stabilization jacks. There's one of these at each corner. They are called stabilization jacks. They're not designed to hold the weight of the trailer. All they do is keep the trailer from rocking once it's in place. So once you've leveled up your trailer, you just put those down until they're snug to provide the stabilization. If you try and jack up your trailer and hold the weight of the trailer with those, a couple things are going to happen. One, you're going to put a bit of a bow in the frame, which means your doors and things won't line up correctly. And the other thing is that you potentially break those because they're not designed for that kind of weight. So just stabilization, nice and snug, but not holding weight of the trailer. You have one at each corner that you have to put down manually. Brake lights on the back, on both sides, turn signals, driving lights. Your input for if you're in a campground with television, or if you have an external satellite system, that's your input for the satellite right there. Or the cable system that runs into where the TV would be located if you option for that. Again, stabilization on the back corner, and coming down the sides, you have your full power awning on this, or manual awning, sorry, on this unit. There's a little arm in this compartment here that attaches to that, and you just turn it out to bring the trailer out, or turn it the other way to bring the awning in. Again, awnings are just made for sunshade for the most part. They're not really designed to hold any kind of rain or rainwater or any kind of any more than a breeze of wind. They can tear themselves apart pretty quickly with that kind of thing. So if you are out in the rain, put it in. If it's getting windy, put it in. And if you leave your unit for more than just a few minutes, put your awning in, because you never know when a wind or rainstorm could come up pretty quickly. Back down the unit, you've got your fridge exhaust and inlet. This is the back side of it. This is your drip piping here, so any condensation on the back side of the fridge will drip through here, so don't be surprised to see that dripping a little bit of water when you're running your fridge if it's cool or hot outside and the fridge backside is cool. Your furnace outlet is right here. This gets quite hot, so watch the kids or anybody around this when you're running your furnace. Make sure that when you are running your furnace, these are clear and there's no debris or bug's nests or anything in there, otherwise you could have a fire hazard. 12 volt or your regular power outlets on the side. Again, you have to be plugged in for those to function. They will not function off your battery. And we'll open up the front compartment here just to show you the back side of that where you can't see, where it's closed off. Oh, lock it. So if you can see in there, you won't see all the way through it like you normally do. That's the back side of that compartment where they've paneled that off to make sure you don't damage any of that plumbing in that area. Okay guys, that's the outside of the 179, so let's go inside. Welcome back guys, we're on the inside of the Hideout 179 now. As you can see, before I get to the panel, the size of this unit with the slide is just way bigger than you would think in the size of a trailer. Just that extra 2 or 3 feet to move the dinette across is just such a great feature. It gives you all the floor place that you're looking for. We're going to start with the panel and the heating on this side, end of the unit. So your furnace is this thermostat right here, so you're going to want to make sure you got propane in the system and the propane is on. Assuming it's all on, to turn the heat on, you push through the little indent there, set it to a temperature, and then it'll run until it reaches whatever setting that is, and you'll monitor the temperature down here. If you want a little warmer, you go a little farther to the right. You want a little cooler, you go to the left, and then to go off, you push it all the way off through the click. Now again, you need propane in the system. The furnace will try and ignite on propane for multiple times, and then eventually would stop trying if it doesn't have propane. And the furnace, even though I've turned that off, you may hear the fan running. That furnace will run through a cycle even though it's now off. So that would cycle through any of the excess heat to keep the air moving, so it doesn't turn off right away. So when you hit that off button, don't be surprised that it runs for another minute or so. So that's perfectly normal. Below that we have the panel here for your levels, and then a couple of options around water heaters and water pumps. So this is your panel for levels. So battery, if you click the battery button, you'll see that it's full. This is E on this side with full on this side. Fresh water, there's 3/4 of a tank on board at the moment, so it's showing 3/4. Your black is empty and your gray is empty. So that's when you're ready to know where your black and gray are to fill them or to empty them out. You just check this panel and it'll tell you the level that it is. Followed down below, you've got your water pump. So again, your water pump is only needed when you're running onboard fresh water. So when you click that, the light goes on, and you'll hear a whirring of the pump pressurizing the system with water. And then it'll turn off once it's got full pressure. And then when you run the water, it'll turn back on to keep that pressure up. Again, you only need that for your fresh water tank. If you're running city water, you don't need to run your water pump. Next is your slide room. So the one I mentioned at the very beginning, all you do is click this to the left to bring the slide in, and you'll hear it and it'll start moving, and then put it out to have it slide out. Always run your slide all the way in or all the way out. You don't want it halfway because sometimes it doesn't seal up correctly in terms of the rubbers around it. So just make sure it's all the way in or all the way out for any period. If you're just traveling, you want to open it to get into access to something, it's fine for a couple of minutes, but other than that, all the way in, all the way out. The last option on the panel is the water heater. So again, propane. You'll turn this on right here. This light will light up at first as it's starting to cycle through and getting ready to ignite. It will go out when it starts to try and ignite, and if it does, that light will stay out. However, it's going to try 3 times to ignite. If it doesn't have propane, that light will come back on, and you know that you've got a fault, and that fault is that you don't have propane getting to the water heater. So you'd have to make sure you don't have air in the lines, and that your tank is turned on, you've got a full tank, or at least some propane in the system. So I'm going to turn that off for now. Moving over to this side, and this is your kitchen area. So you've got your big fridge, bigger than you normally get in this size of a unit, which is great. That slide, again, that maximizes it. So it's a full-size freezer and a fridge unit. Down below, the way that you work this is you've got the setting for on-off. So if you want to run the fridge, you click the on button, and then you have an option to run on auto, which means it'll default to electric if you're plugged in, or try and go to gas if you don't have electric. If you just want to run on gas, you click this button out, which then means it's going to try and run on gas. Again, you have to have propane in the system. It'll try it multiple times to ignite, and if it doesn't, it will stop trying. But what we usually say is just keep it on auto and then have it on the on-off button, so that if you're plugged in, it's usually the electric, and if you're not, it'll switch to the gas for when you're traveling or if you're dry camping. So we'll turn that off. The temperature control of the fridge itself is this little sliding mechanism right here. I'll just move my hand, see that? And then it slides up to make it a little cooler and down to make it a little warmer. So we say start with the middle one and see where you're at. If you don't feel it's cold enough, then go a little bit up towards the top. It's just a little sensor there, so sometimes they get dislodged. So if you're not getting a change in the temperature, make sure that plastic fitting is connected to that sensor and that it's moving with itself. Moving down the kitchen area, you've got your regular residential microwave, operates just like any other microwave. Your fan to exhaust what you're cooking over the cooktop, and you have a manually lit cooktop. So if I wanted to light it, I switch it to light on this one, and then I would have a lighting mechanism, whether it's a match or just a handheld barbecue lighter. That's how you do that. The same with this one here. So you have two burners that run on propane, and you manually light them in this unit. That is the way I purge the system of air. So I would go to light, I would hold my thing here, and the air would be starting to push out until it finally lights, and then I turn it to high and run it for a couple of seconds to get the air out, and then turn it off. And now I know my propane system is pressurized with propane instead of air. Down below the fridge on this area here, you've got your furnace. So again, that's operated on the wall that we already showed you. It's still cycling through itself from what we started a minute ago. This is where the heat will come out to warm up the unit. So it gets warm, but not too hot, but it does get warm depending on the temperature you're setting. Over here is your fuse panel. So again, your 30 amp unit. It is on switches and fuses depending on the power we're using. So these are your switches right here. Sometimes you blow these if you run a hair dryer and a toaster all at the same time. You may blow one of those. That's normal if because you're just drawing too much power. However, if you're continually blowing those, there may be an electrical problem that needs to be investigated. On this side here is your push fuses, and these do go over time, and don't be surprised occasionally that they go out. If they do go out, a little LED will light up beside it, and you'll see that LED either in there and through the little screen here to say that there's something wrong with the fuse. If you're blowing the same fuse over and over and over, that's something that might be off, and you may need to look at that. On the bottom, by the floor here, is your carbon monoxide detector. You've got a carbon monoxide detector on the floor, and you've got a smoke detector on the ceiling. In either case, if any one of those go off, you really need to make sure you execute or exit the unit with everybody. So if one of them goes off, everybody out of the unit, and then try and figure out what the problem is. Because if it's carbon monoxide, it could overcome you before you get a chance to escape. So open the door, everybody out of the unit, and then determine what's going on. You've got your radio right here. So you've got speakers on the outside and speakers on the inside, and they're controlled by two zones. This is Bluetooth enabled, so you can pair your phone with it, and then you can get your radio stations as well. We'll turn that off. Your sink right here. It's just regular pressured water, so you open that tap up and let it come out. And this is hot water on this side, and then it drains into your gray water tank when it's not in use, or when it's emptying. And then so all your sinks, your showers, all go to the gray. Only your toilet goes to the black. So let's walk into the washroom. This is a pretty large washroom. Lots of space inside, especially on the right side. We got counter space, more counter space than you typically would get in this size of a unit. Full-size bath tub shower setup, and then a vent on the roof with a fan to exhaust any kind of moisture that would be from showering or whatever. And then the last part to talk about is the bedroom. So this is your walk-around bed. Again, another big feature of the slide is that you get all that access or all that floor space, and you still have a walk-around bed. It's got storage on both sides. with plugs and USB plugs on this side, and then it flips up to show you the storage that's underneath there for anything you need to store. So guys, that's the walk around of the Hideout 179. If you have any other questions, just give us a call.